Hi, my name is Shannan. They told me not to make a scene, that bruises fade and futures don't come back. My brother slammed my head into the fridge. My mother whispered, "Don't ruin his career." I bled in silence while she scrubbed the floor. No ambulance, no apology, just ice and a lie. But then Grandma called, and the question is, why did it take one quiet voice on the phone for me to finally hear my own? You ever have a moment where everything around you feels still? Too still? Like the house is holding its breath right alongside you. It was one of those evenings. Early fall in Peoria meant the light had started to shift. Golden, soft, too forgiving for what was about to happen. The kitchen clock ticked in stubborn rhythm. I was chopping carrots, the knife hitting the board just loud enough to remind me I was still here, still useful. The house was spotless. I'd wiped down the countertops twice, not because they were dirty, but because clean wasn't enough. It had to be invisible. I had to be invisible. The front door creaked open and slammed shut. Heavy steps. No need to guess. Lyle. He stormed in, tossing his gym bag into the hallway like the floor owed him something. The refrigerator buzzed louder as he passed by, as if it were trying to speak up for me. "What are you looking at?" His voice sliced the air, sharp and dry. I didn't look at him. That was the trick. "Nothing," I said quickly, eyes still on the cutting board. "I was just cleaning." He snorted. "Of course you were." He yanked open the fridge, rummaged, slammed it shut. The sound reverberated up through my chest. My fingers twitched over the knife. Not because I was thinking of using it, just a reflex. The same way a bird flutters when you tap the glass. "Where's the damn chicken?" he barked. "In the oven," I replied, softer than I meant to. He didn't say thank you. Of course he didn't. I turned back to my task, but I could feel him watching me, not just watching, calculating. There was a storm behind his eyes that had nothing to do with dinner. I'd seen it before, after a loss, after a coach's criticism, after a woman told him no. I braced. "You think you're better than me?" he asked suddenly. The knife froze in midair. "What? No, He moved fast. Too fast. His hand grabbed the front of my sweatshirt, yanked me sideways. My shoulder hit the fridge, but it wasn't the shoulder that mattered. It was the corner of the handle that met the side of my head. The world rang like a struck bell. I stumbled, knees giving way. I didn't scream. I froze. That's what happens when you've been taught silence is loyalty. That's what happens when your own name feels heavier than your brother's fists. I was on the floor before I knew I'd fallen. Everything swam in and out. Color, shape, noise. I could feel warmth sliding down my neck, pooling just beneath my collar. The kind of wet that smells like copper and memory. I heard footsteps. Another door. Mom. "Lyle," she hissed, voice sharp with panic but not concern. "Go. Upstairs. Now." He didn't argue. That's how I knew he wasn't sorry. Sorry people argue. Guilty people obey. She knelt beside me, hand pressing down on my shoulder. Not gentle, not maternal. "Don't say a word," she whispered. "You fell." "Do you hear me?" My mouth opened, but no sound came out. She glanced toward the front of the house, where neighbors might be outside, mowing lawns, walking dogs. Peoria's fall evenings were deceptive like that. Safe, suburban, silent. "We're not going to the hospital," she said. "No emergency. Just ice. Just quiet." I tried to lift myself. She pushed a towel into my hands, already damp from where she'd grabbed it under the sink. "I said quiet, Shannan. You'll ruin everything for him." For him. She never asked what hurt. She never asked if I was okay. She just looked at the blood and winced, not with worry, but with calculation. What would it mean if someone saw? What would it cost if they believed me? I staggered upstairs, towel pressed to my head. My room felt colder than usual, the air stale, like I'd sealed myself in a tomb lined with participation trophies and old photo frames that no longer had my face in them. I laid on my side, towel under my ear, the copper scent lingering. The phone buzzed on the nightstand. A familiar name blinked up at me. Grandma Velda. I stared at it. My thumb hovered. I almost didn't answer, but something inside me, older than fear, quieter than rage, told me it was time. I hit the green button. Her voice crackled through the line like it always did, firm but kind. Baby, what happened to your neck? Baby, what happened to your neck? I froze, phone trembling in my hand. Grandma's face filled the screen, her voice steady, but her eyes were scanning every pixel, every shadow. I'd wiped away most of the blood, tied my hair low to cover the swelling. But there, on the edge of my collarbone, a thin, rust-colored line had dried, curling like a secret too stubborn to hide. It's nothing, I lied. Just a bump. I slipped near the sink. There was a pause, not long enough to break the moment, just long enough to let me know she didn't believe a word. Before she could press further, I heard footsteps coming down the hall. Darlene. I angled the phone slightly away, trying to hold on to that last shred of privacy, but it was no use. What's going on? Mom asked, voice all sugar. When she saw who I was talking to, her whole demeanor shifted. Velda, we weren't expecting you on video today. Velda nodded slowly, her voice careful. Wasn't planned. Just checking in on my girl. She had a little fall, Darlene chimed in, stepping into the frame like a seasoned stage actor. Tile was slippery. You know how these old kitchens are. I see, Grandma said, though her face gave nothing away. Darlene kept smiling. She's fine now, aren't you, sweetie? I nodded. Velda didn't call me out on the lie. She didn't scold, didn't accuse. She just said, well, let me know if you need anything, okay? We ended the call. But the silence in the room afterward, it buzzed louder than the fridge. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, Darlene knocked lightly, then walked in without waiting for an answer. She was holding a plastic grocery bag and a clean sweatshirt. Change into this, she said flatly. I looked down at the one I was wearing. The bloodstains were faint now, but visible if you looked too long. Hand me the other one when you're done, she added. I didn't ask why. She took it, sealed it in the bag like it was biohazard. Maybe to her it was, tomorrow if they ask, you tripped. You were rushing to grab ice. She wasn't asking. It wasn't even suggestion. It was law. And I knew better than to argue with law in this house. Later, I heard her in the kitchen, scrubbing, not just the floor. She was analyzing angles, making sure the blood trail looked accidental, not deliberate. She moved like someone covering a crime scene on a TV show. The mop swished with rhythm, steady and cold. When she was done, she sent a single photo to Wendell. I caught a glimpse over her shoulder. A spotless kitchen, time-stamped. His reply came in under a minute. Don't make it worse. Worse for who? The next morning, she drove me to urgent care. We didn't speak in the car. She adjusted the radio, fiddled with the AC. Like we were heading to the post office, not to explain away head trauma. At the clinic, I sat stiffly in the waiting room while she filled out the forms. She didn't ask if I was dizzy or if my head still throbbed. I was furniture, something to be processed. Inside, a nurse took my vitals. She noticed the bruising on my shoulder and the stiffness in my posture. You okay? She asked gently. Did someone do this to you? I shook my head, eyes fixed on the tile floor. My voice didn't work. She nodded once and wrote something down. Then came the doctor, a woman in her early 40s with crow's feet and calm eyes. She examined my scalp, fingers light, breath steady. This isn't the kind of injury that comes from just slipping, she said, tone soft but firm. Can I ask again? Did someone do this to you? I didn't get a chance to answer. Darlene swept in, all brightness and warmth. Oh, we already talked about that, she said, walking right up to the exam table. It was a silly little fall, right, honey? I stared at her for a beat too long. My silence said everything. The doctor nodded slowly, but her gaze never left mine. Understood. When we walked back through the clinic's hallway, I thought that was it. But just before I reached the exit, the doctor stopped me gently and slipped something into my palm, a small card. I didn't look at it right away. I waited until we were in the car, until Darlene was on the phone, her voice bouncing between fake laughs and fake updates. The card read, "If you ever need to talk, I'll listen. Dr. L. Trent." That was the first time someone said they'd believe me, without me even asking. The card sat in my hand the whole ride home. I didn't look at it. I didn't have to. The weight of it was enough. A promise scribbled in black ink, the quiet sound of someone seeing me when no one else had bothered to look. Darlene talked the entire drive, loudly, to Wendell, probably. She's fine. They bought it. Everything looks normal now. Yes, I already tossed the shirt. I watched the rain on the window blur the lights of Peoria as we drove past the strip mall near our neighborhood. Every store lit up like it belonged to someone else's life. A clean one, a safe one. That card felt like a grenade, and I didn't dare move in case it went off. That night, I stayed in my room with the lights off. I heard the blender downstairs, Mom making one of Lyle's protein shakes, like the man hadn't just crushed his sister's skull into an appliance. The house buzzed with normalcy, or the kind of performance that passed for it in our family. Around 10, I went to the bathroom. The hallway lights were off, but the glow from the kitchen leaked through. I paused outside the door. Mom was on speakerphone with Wendell. "They'll send a bill soon," she said. "I need the money moved before it itemizes." Wendell's voice, flat and curt. "Don't let it become a report. Move fast." I stepped back before she saw me, heart pounding like I'd stolen something. But I hadn't. I was the thing being stolen. Back in my room, I opened the family's joint bank account on my tablet. I don't even know what I was looking for. Proof, maybe. Proof that I wasn't crazy. There it was. A transaction labeled Incident Handling. $2,000 transferred to Darlene's account. My college savings account, once hovering above 5 figures, had dropped by the exact same amount. I wasn't a daughter. I was a cost of doing business. Later, after midnight, I lay in the dark, face turned toward the wall. That was when the phone buzzed on my nightstand. Text from Lyle. "Say one wrong word and I swear I'll finish what I started." A second later, a voice message. I didn't want to play it, but my thumb hovered. I listened. It was a sound I didn't expect. A crash, something breaking. No words, just the unmistakable echo of violence. I flinched, but my body didn't move, like it had accepted this was normal. I deleted the message, but not before screen recording it. One day, I might need it, for court, or for myself when the gaslighting got too loud. I didn't even know how scared I could get until silence became the safest choice. At school the next day, I drifted through classes like a ghost. Nobody noticed. Nobody asked. I got A's. I smiled on cue. I returned library books on time. I was exactly the kind of girl who disappears without anyone realizing she's gone. On my lunch break, I slipped into the media center and used one of the dusty school laptops to open an old email account I hadn't touched since high school. In the inbox sat a message from Lyle's ex-girlfriend, Raina. I'd blocked her years ago after she'd warned me to be careful. Back then, I thought she was jealous, bitter. Now I knew better. I clicked into the message thread. One unread bubble waited at the bottom. "If he ever hurts you too, don't stay quiet like I did." My throat tightened. I hadn't cried in days, but that sentence hit different. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was familiar. I wasn't the first, and I wouldn't be the last. The message sat on my screen, quiet as a confession. "If he ever hurts you too, don't stay quiet like I did." I reread it 5 times. I couldn't tell if I felt relief or nausea. Maybe both. I lay on my side, towel damp behind my ear, pulse thudding in the same spot where the fridge handle had left its mark. I used to think silence was protection. Now, it felt like consent. Morning crept in through the blinds, the kind of cold light that makes everything in the room look sterile, like an abandoned hospital. My head ached, my neck felt tight, and when I sat up too fast, a slow sting reminded me I was still healing. A knock at the door, then Darlene's voice, flat and indifferent. "You'll need to pull it together. We're having dinner with Mr. Danvers next week." "No. How are you feeling?" Not even fake concern. I didn't answer. I didn't have the energy to lie. I limped to the bathroom, using the wall for support. The mirror didn't lie. It never had. The dried blood was a halo around my hairline, rust-colored and sticky. I turned on the shower and stood under the stream until the water turned lukewarm, Scrubbing didn't help much. The blood was gone, but the shame clung like a second skin. It wasn't just blood. It was proof. And all I had were paper towels and shame. I sat on the closed toilet lid and stared at the floor tiles. All that effort Mom made to clean up the kitchen, to make sure no one could tell. But my body remembered. My memory wasn't something she could bleach. My phone buzzed beside me on the sink. Grandma. Her message was short. Tell me the truth. I can handle it. Can you? The guilt cut sharper than the wound. She'd warned me before, more than once. 2 years ago, we sat at her tiny kitchen table. I was 19, frustrated about a fight with Mom, something about chores or bills. I don't even remember. Velda had made me tea, the kind that smells like dried apple slices and honey. You can love people who are no good for you, baby, she said, hands wrapped around her mug, but you don't have to stay near them. I'd nodded, half listening, believing I was the exception, that if I just stayed long enough, helped enough, absorbed enough, maybe they'd finally see me. Turns out, Grandma hadn't been guessing. She was remembering. Why did it take bleeding to believe her? My phone chimed again. This time, a voice note. I'm not asking for drama, Grandma said. I'm asking for the truth. Your silence is saving the wrong people. Dinner came that evening like it always did, passive-aggressively punctual. The table was set, the plates too clean, the food too warm. Darlene served pot roast like we were auditioning for a holiday commercial. Lyle didn't say much. He didn't have to. His smirk did all the talking. About halfway through the meal, Wendell's voice came through Mom's laptop on a video call. He was traveling again, which always seemed to conveniently happen when anything fell apart. I heard Velda's been stirring things again, he said between bites of room service. Keep your head down. We've got enough to lose already. My fork scraped against my plate. The mashed potatoes looked like the towel from that night, soft, off-white, and hiding more than they showed. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I recorded. Later that night, when the house had gone quiet, I curled into bed and unlocked the hidden folder on my phone. I called it Fireproof, because everything in it was designed to survive heat. The voicemail, the screenshots, the photos, the silence they wanted to weaponize. I was repurposing it. They wanted me quiet. But silence is a loaded weapon. I watched the screen flicker as I replayed Lyle's voicemail again. It wasn't the words. Those I could recite in my sleep by now. It was the tone. The way he didn't sound angry, just sure, like he had nothing to worry about, like he knew no one in this house would ever stand between him and whatever he wanted. That certainty made me sick. I hid in the last stall of the school library restroom during lunch, where no one would ask questions. My back against the cold tile, phone balanced on my knee, I opened my Fireproof folder again. I didn't add anything new, just checked the files, just confirmed they were still there. Velda's name popped up at the top of my screen. Still no truth yet. No greeting, no pressure, just a nudge. She knew what I hadn't said, and what I was too scared to. That night, I locked the bathroom door and turned on the shower for noise. Steam rose quickly as I FaceTimed her. My hoodie was zipped high, hair damp, eyes heavy. We talked about nothing at first, her cat, her neighbor, the weather that wouldn't make up its mind. Then she saw it, a smear of red just beneath the collar. I hadn't noticed it when I changed. Her face didn't shift, not even a blink, but her voice tightened. Honey, what happened to your neck? My instinct was to lie. It's nothing. I scratched it. She didn't push, just looked at me the way only she could, like she knew and loved me anyway. I'm screen recording this, she said softly. My chest tightened, but I didn't stop her. She didn't need me to perform my pain. She just needed the truth preserved. That was the difference between her and everyone else. She didn't demand the truth. She saved it. The next morning, I asked Mom if I could go back to urgent care, told her my head still hurt and the Advil wasn't cutting it. She rolled her eyes but agreed. Maybe she thought it'd make me feel heard without being dangerous. At the clinic, the same nurse from before greeted me. She smiled like she recognized me, but didn't say it out loud. While Mom stepped away to take a call, some PTA nonsense, the nurse leaned in during my weight check. She slipped a folded brochure into the front pocket of my hoodie. No words, just a pat on my shoulder. In the stall later, I opened it. Inside was a card. Women's Shelter Network. You are not alone. I didn't cry, but I held that card like it was the first real lifeline I'd been thrown. For once, silence didn't feel like surrender. It felt like strategy. That evening at dinner, the usual script played. Meatloaf, green beans, Lyle shoveling food like he hadn't threatened me 2 nights ago. Halfway through, Darlene cleared her throat. We may need to dip into the other account for some of Lyle's legal consultations, just in case any rumors start swirling. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. The other account. My college fund. I set the fork down gently and looked straight at her. You're not using my name, I said, steady. Not my money, and definitely not my silence. Wendell looked up from his phone for the first time all week. Mom blinked. Excuse me? I said no, I repeated. You've spent enough of me already. The silence that followed was heavier than anything I'd ever felt in that house. Not because I'd said something shocking, but because I'd said anything at all. That night, while the house slept, I unlocked Fireproof. One by one, I deleted the generic file names. I gave each file a label. March 3rd, voicemail. April 1st, bruises. May 14th, screenshot. They didn't know it yet, but I was building a map out of here, and I wasn't going to ask permission to follow it. They don't know I'm building a map out of here, but I am. That thought clung to me for days. It followed me from my bedroom to the classroom to every hallway I passed without looking anyone in the eye. I didn't walk the same anymore. I didn't flinch at Lyle's voice. I observed. I watched how Mom froze whenever the landline rang from a number she didn't recognize. I noticed how Wendell stopped replying in full sentences in the family group chat, just thumbs up emojis. That was his way of managing crisis, quietly and from afar. I wasn't just watching them. I was preparing. I moved all my files, photos, texts, the nurse's card, into a backup folder and set a timed upload to the cloud every 24 hours. I wrote a script in my notes app, just in case someone else needed to tell my story. Then one afternoon, while pretending to do homework at the dining table, my phone buzzed. A message from Velda. Doors don't open on their own, baby. Sometimes you have to unlock it from the inside. Later that evening, I called her. She didn't waste time. Do you want me to help you get out? I didn't hesitate this time. I nodded. Slow. Deliberate. Velda hit record on her end, voice steady. My granddaughter is in danger. I've seen her wounds. She sent the file off before I could breathe. I didn't even ask who she sent it to. I trusted her. I always had. She didn't wait for someone else to protect me. She decided she would. The next day, a call came in while I was folding laundry in the basement, my usual chore since the night of the incident. A restricted number lit up my screen. Miss Moore? A calm woman's voice said. Yes, I replied, throat tight. I just want you to know, you're not alone. We're listening. I didn't cry, but for the first time in weeks, I exhaled like I meant it. Dinner that night was meatloaf again. Mom talked about the upcoming church fundraiser like nothing had changed. Wendell was on the laptop mid-call with some overseas contractor. Lyle barely looked up from his plate. Then came the knock. 3 short raps at the door, measured, confident. Darlene got up first, her voice breezy. I'll get it. Seconds later, she turned back toward us, smile fading. 2 officers stood in the entryway. Plain clothes, polite but unreadable. One tall, female, hair in a bun. The other, stocky male, holding a clipboard. We're here for Shannan Moore, the woman said. We'd like to speak to her privately. She's not feeling well, Darlene started, voice climbing. It's okay, I said, rising from my chair. I want to talk. Lyle's fork clinked against his plate. Wendell's fingers froze above his keyboard. No one said anything. I stepped into the hallway. The officers guided me outside where the air felt wider somehow. The taller one spoke first. You don't have to tell us everything now. But we'd like to understand what's going on. I handed them the card from the nurse, mentioned Dr. Ellen Trent, and told them about the voicemail. "I'm not looking for drama," I said quietly. "I just don't want to be afraid of my own home anymore." They nodded, the woman scribbling something quickly on her notepad. "We'll be back, with someone from Family Protective Services. Be ready." I didn't ask when. I didn't ask what next. I just nodded. That night, I didn't sleep much. But I didn't toss and turn either. I set my alarm for 5 a.m., slipped my charger under my pillow, and placed my phone right beside my hand. They thought they had locked every exit, but the door didn't open. I did. The sun broke through my window before my alarm. I was already awake, still lying in the same position, hand on my phone, breath measured. Everything in me was rehearsed now, even how I breathed. I sat up, slowly. No rush. I moved with the kind of precision you learn when everything around you is timed for someone else's comfort. I reached under my bed and pulled out the small overnight bag I had packed 2 nights ago, just in case. Velda had messaged just before sunrise, "Don't run. Make them walk away first." I stared at the hallway camera I had screwed into the vent cover 3 days prior. Motion triggered, synced to the cloud. No one knew it was there, but it had captured everything from Lyle's shouting matches to Darlene's choreographed damage control. At breakfast, Wendell was the first to speak. "They'll probably want to talk to everyone," he said without looking up from his eggs. "We need to be united. Calm." Darlene added, "Simple, factual." "Quiet." Lyle smirked across the table, buttering his toast like a man waiting to be celebrated. I didn't speak. Instead, I opened my laptop, tapped the space bar, and let it play. Lyle's voice filled the kitchen. "Say one word, and I'll finish what I started." The scrape of knife on toast stopped. Forks lowered. Silence. But not the kind they liked. Their kind of silence was about control. This one was about exposure. No one moved. I stood, shut the laptop, and walked out without saying a thing. I'd rather be feared for telling the truth than pitied for hiding it. Later that afternoon, after school, I logged into an old burner Instagram I hadn't touched since high school. It was the only place Raina had messaged me once, back when I'd ignored her, back when I still thought this family was worth saving. I found her message and finally typed, "You free to talk tonight?" She replied in under a minute. We spoke over video later that night. Her face looked older than I remembered, like she had carried her silence longer than I had. "He didn't start with you," she said. "And he didn't stop after me." She showed me screenshots, texts from Lyle, photos of bruises on her collarbone, emails she'd written to herself to timestamp it all. Documentation, survival. "He told me no one would believe me," she added. "Said his mom called me unstable. Said I was just another angry girl." I recorded every second of the call. My voice shook when I said, "You just saved me more than you know." Around 10 p.m., I came downstairs for water. That's when I heard them, Lyle and Wendell, standing by the sliding door, whispering like criminals trying not to trip the alarm. "If she backs off, I'll delete everything too," Lyle said. Wendell responded, "We'll get the lawyer to call her bluff. It's just a phase." I didn't flinch. I didn't storm in. I just turned around and walked back upstairs. They were still trying to solve a crisis. I was ending a cycle. I opened Fireproof, added the new footage from Raina, labeled the file, timestamped it. Each folder had become a nail, each name a board in the coffin of their story. I walked into the kitchen and stood at the center of the room. "I want a meeting," I said. "All of us, tomorrow." Darlene looked up from her phone, eyebrows pinched. "What for?" I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. To make it clear who this family really protects. No one asked why I moved the chairs, or why I arranged them in a perfect half circle, all facing the fireplace instead of the television. I wasn't aiming for comfort. I was aiming for clarity. For the first time, this house would host truth. Darlene came in first, arms crossed, a skeptical smile trying to smooth over the tension. Wendell followed behind, holding a manila folder labeled Options, his passive-aggressive way of saying, "We're prepared to discredit you." Lyle arrived last, mug in hand, wearing sweats like it was any other lazy weekend morning. I set my phone on the coffee table, screen angled toward them, camera on. No one objected. They weren't afraid yet. "This isn't a negotiation," I said calmly. "It's a record." They looked at each other. Mom's eyes narrowed. Wendell shifted in his seat. Lyle slouched back. "I'm going to say everything once," I continued. "Just once. Since the night Lyle slammed my head into the fridge handle, I've been expected to lie, to fold myself into a version of the truth that keeps everyone else safe but me. That ends today." Darlene rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said, voice still level. "I'm being documented." I tapped the screen. From the speaker, her own voice filled the room, panicked but composed. "Make sure she doesn't talk. We can't afford that right now. Lyle's contract is too close." The silence after was louder than the recording. Wendell cleared his throat. "That was taken out of context." "Then let me provide context," I said. I opened my fireproof folder and read the timestamp. The evening of the incident, 8 minutes after I was left bleeding on the kitchen floor. I looked at each of them in turn. "You didn't even wait to see if I was okay." No one spoke. I reached into my backpack and pulled out a sheet of paper. "This is from the bank," I said, handing it to Wendell. "A transfer labeled legal contingency. Same date. Same amount as what was in my college fund." Darlene reached for the page, scanned it. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came. "You didn't just silence me," I said. "You funded him with my future." Lyle laughed, leaning back in his chair. "I was always going to make it further than you anyway." His voice was smug, dismissive. From the phone speaker, Velda's voice sliced through. "Not anymore." Her tone was cold. Final. Lyle's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. I stood, grabbing the rest of the documents I had printed. Photos, notes, logs of every lie they told and every silence they demanded. "I will never be part of a legacy that protects predators," I said. I dropped the files onto the table like a final exam I had no intention of taking. "You can keep the house," I said. "I'll keep my name." I turned toward the door. "Where do you think you're going?" Darlene asked, rising to her feet. I looked back at her, eyes dry, voice steady. "To file everything," I said. "You'll be getting copies." I walked into the family services office with my backpack snug against my shoulder and my folder held tight to my chest. The building smelled like printer toner and worry, cold, institutional, but solid. People moved through the halls with hushed voices and quick steps, each of them carrying some version of their own quiet disaster. At the counter, I gave my name. The woman behind the desk nodded and handed me a clipboard without making eye contact. I signed my name without hesitation. They used to say I was unstable, so I stabilized myself with facts. The courtroom wasn't what I expected. It wasn't grand or dramatic. It felt like a library that had given up. Beige carpet, mismatched chairs, a judge who looked more like someone's uncle than someone who could change the course of my life. Lyle arrived early. Pressed shirt, clean shave, a smile so fake it made my teeth ache. His attorney leaned in and whispered something, and Lyle laughed, charming, confident. He looked around the room like he was waiting for applause. When it was his turn, he stood, shrugged, and said, "I don't blame her. She's confused. I think she genuinely believes I did something. She's been hitting herself. That's what the bruises are." The judge blinked. No reaction, just a pen moving across a pad of paper. My turn. I stood, back straight, voice clear. "I'm not confused," I said. I brought a timeline of every voicemail, every bank transaction, every bruise. I read it aloud, not to convince anyone, just to make it real, out loud, for the first time in a space that required listening. When I finished, I let the silence hang. "Confusion is what you weaponize," I said finally. "I'm not confused anymore." Before anyone could respond, someone stood up from the back row. Raina. She didn't look at me as she addressed the judge. "May I speak?" He nodded. She walked to the front, slow but sure. Her voice didn't waver. I was with him before. I never reported anything. I was afraid. I thought I was the only one. She pulled a folder from her purse, texts, timestamps, photos of bruises, a copy of a police report she'd written and never submitted. I didn't stay quiet because I didn't believe myself, she said. I stayed quiet because I knew no one else would. Lyle shifted in his seat, eyes no longer steady. Darlene stood suddenly, voice sharp. This is a smear campaign. The judge slammed the gavel. Enough! The room quieted. Lyle's attorney scribbled into his notebook. Darlene sat back down, but her posture cracked, her confidence not as thick as her tone. When it ended, I walked outside, blinking into the sunlight. It was the first time I'd stepped into daylight without a hoodie in weeks. A few reporters hovered nearby. One stepped forward. Shannan, would you like to comment? I didn't pause. I already did, I said. Inside. Under oath. My voice cracked a little, but it didn't break. And that's what mattered. As I made my way toward Velda's car, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I was in the same house. I never said anything. Can we talk? I stared at the screen, heart tight in my chest. I wasn't alone, and now I knew it for sure. The message came from a number I didn't recognize, but the name in the text stopped me cold. It's Krista, your cousin. I was in the same house. I never said anything. Can we talk? We agreed to meet the next morning at a quiet corner cafe a few blocks from the courthouse. It was barely 8 o'clock a.m. when I spotted her near the window, sipping something too hot for how fast she was drinking it. Krista looked different, tired around the eyes, like she'd been holding a secret for too many years and only now remembered she had the right to speak it. I heard what happened, she said, fingers fidgeting with her cup's sleeve. I believed it the second I saw it. I should have said something when I had the chance. I didn't need her to apologize. Just knowing I wasn't the only one suffocating in the same silence was enough. The silence wasn't just in our house, I told her. It echoed. Later that day, I went back to the trauma center. My new therapist had scheduled a full evaluation. We went through questions, responses, gentle but firm probing into where the fear lived now, then the MRI. It didn't take long to show what we already suspected. Small signs of trauma in the temporal lobe, microhemorrhaging. Not severe, but present. Consistent with a blunt force impact. The doctor didn't look surprised. He handed me the report, printed in duplicate. This isn't just physical, he said, resting the folder between us. This is systemic. I thanked him without smiling. There was nothing satisfying about being medically validated. But it was necessary. They always wanted me quiet. But now even my X-ray spoke louder than they ever let me. 2 days later, Lyle posted a video on Instagram. Black and white filter. Soft piano in the background. His hair was tousled just enough to look vulnerable, like grief had ruffled it. I've been reflecting, he began, eyes lowered. He said he regretted misunderstandings and loved his family deeply and wanted healing, not blame. Darlene commented, "Proud of you for owning up, son." The likes climbed, comments poured in, sympathy, applause, the usual digital absolution. Then a comment rose to the top. Velda. 4 words. Not like this. The comment exploded. Screenshots went viral. Someone tagged the court case file, then the police report. Then the clip of Lyle laughing during the deposition leaked. The apology tour ended there. I didn't say anything. I just reposted Velda's comment with a single caption. This is my family. The next week, a journalist from the Peoria Times reached out. She was working on a piece about community safety and the gaps between family violence and the systems meant to stop it. We met at a park bench near the river. I didn't give names. I didn't ask for sympathy. I don't need to burn anyone down, I told her. I just need a world where girls like me know they can leave. She nodded and wrote that down, just like that. No edits. My words landed like a stone in still water. No splash. Just ripples spreading wide. That afternoon, walking home, I passed my old high school. I hadn't looked at it directly in years, always kept my eyes on the sidewalk, like the building had a face I couldn't bear to recognize. But today, a poster caught my attention. Guest speaker. Next week, Shannan Moore. The power of staying and then leaving. They wanted a story they could control. I gave them the truth instead. I didn't even listen to the whole voicemail. Wendell's voice was low and tired, like he'd run out of someone else to blame. "I hope you're happy now," he said. "This family is in pieces." I deleted it before he finished, no hesitation. It wasn't a family. It was a theater, and I stopped buying tickets. The next morning, Velda and I sat on the porch, sipping coffee like we had nowhere to be. For once, we didn't talk about next steps or who said what in court. There were no strategy sessions, no worries about headlines or court dates, just the sound of birds and the clink of her spoon against a ceramic mug. "You can grieve people you never truly had," she said gently, watching the steam curl. "It doesn't make you weak. It makes you honest." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. I just leaned my head lightly against her shoulder. That was the most peace I'd known in months. A few days later, a letter arrived. Cream envelope, gold embossed edges, fancy. It was a wedding invitation for Lyle. Inside was a handwritten note from Darlene. "We would still love for you to be there. Let's move past all this. You're still family. Still, like nothing had changed." I tucked the note into a drawer without a word. That night, I went into the backyard with a lighter and burned the envelope to ash. I didn't cry, I didn't rage, I just watched it curl and disappear. I'm not moving past it, I'm moving away from it. The next week, I submitted paperwork to legally drop Wendell's middle name from mine. I didn't want any trace of him on my mail, not even in initials. I started writing again, essays, reflections, the kind of pieces people skim in local newsletters, but sometimes stop for when a line catches them off guard. I published them under a pen name. The first one, "The Legacy of a Bruise You Can't See." A week after it went live, I got an email from a woman in Wisconsin. She wrote, "Thank you. Your story was mine." I just didn't know how to write it. It was the most powerful sentence I'd read in years. One Thursday night, Velda invited me to a survivor support group at the community center. I didn't want to go to speak. I just wanted to be near people who understood what silence costs. We sat in folding chairs in a circle, faces soft with exhaustion, some still afraid to look up. Stories poured slowly, some halting, some in a single breath. I said nothing. Until the end. That's when a young woman, maybe 19, sat next to me. She didn't speak. Her hands shook in her lap. I didn't push her. "You don't have to tell me anything," I whispered. "Just stay." She nodded once, and we sat in silence while the room emptied around us. Sometimes healing doesn't start with a scream. Sometimes it starts with a seat. The morning air felt different, less like weight, more like wind. I walked into the Peoria County Courthouse with no hearing scheduled, no lawyers waiting. Just me, my paperwork, and a calm I'd earned. The clerk called my name. Well, not the name I'd chosen, but the one I was still legally tied to. I didn't flinch, not this time. "I'm here to file a restraining order extension," I said, "and a name change petition. Forms, stamps, signatures, routine for them. Revolution for me." They gave me a name soaked in silence. I chose one written in truth. A week later, Darlene and Lyle launched what they called a new chapter, Instagram stories, a podcast appearance. Lyle wore a soft sweater, sipped from a monogrammed mug, and told his version. "I was misunderstood," he said. "I've grown." The clip made it halfway through the algorithm before someone leaked the raw footage, unedited, unfiltered. In it, Lyle turned to the camera crew and asked, "Should I cry here or at the end?" Mic. Dropped. Comments exploded. Not with sympathy, but with disbelief, rage, disgust. The mask had slipped, and this time, everyone saw. Then came Velda, one comment, 4 words. "Some masks only fall when you hold up a mirror." That was the moment the internet turned. Not because it was sensational, but because it was quiet, clear, sponsorships pulled. The podcast episode was removed within 48 hours. Darlene tried to defend him online, but the tide was already going the other way. No one believed them anymore, not even the people who once did. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I sat in a modest office downtown, across from city board members discussing updates to domestic abuse reporting policies. They asked if I wanted to speak publicly. I declined the camera, but I said yes to the board nomination. I'm not here to burn anyone down, I told them. I'm here so no girl ever has to feel like the only one in her house who sees what's happening. The motion passed. I shook hands. No speeches, just purpose. I didn't need to destroy them. I built something they'll never reach. 2 weeks later, I returned to the house on Elmwood. Not to talk, not to ask anything. I stepped onto the porch and slid a sealed manila envelope through the mail slot. Inside was a copy of the court order, the medical report, and a handwritten note. You chose your legacy. I chose my freedom. I walked back to the car. Didn't turn around, didn't pause. Some endings don't need doors slamming, just a step forward. Then, one afternoon, a white envelope appeared in my mailbox, addressed not to Shannan L. Moore, but to the name I'd chosen. Inside was a letter from a publishing agent who had read my essay in the local paper. We'd like to discuss a book, it read. Your story is more than survival, it's a statement. I folded the letter slowly, placed it back in the envelope. For the first time, I wasn't writing to be seen. I was writing because I finally saw myself. Hi, I'm Althea. I was told by my own mother to take a break from family.